Hello, everybody. My name is Daquan, and welcome back to the Quixotic topic. Today I'm joined by
Duda.
and today's topic is music. And so, Duda, when you came to me and you wanted to talk about music, what specifically were you talking about?
Mostly hip hop, R&B, the main genres I listen to. I mean, I listen to a lot of like rock, pop, but like it's mainly hip hop and R&B.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that my music taste is a bit more eclectic. I listen to a lot of EDM, and I do listen to hip hop and R&B, but not as much as I would guess the average Joe.
Yeah.
Seeing as that it's definitely has it's a major fixture in pop culture nowadays. So, how would you say the hip hop and rap genre is faring right now? Do you think it's?
I think it's better than it's ever been, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people like a lot of old hits, as I like to call them.
Mm-hmm.
Will like tell you that I'd say that it's not really too good. The little rappers like Lil Pump, all the mumble rappers like they call it, but they'll say that hip hop is dead. But in my opinion, it's the best it's ever been. There's a lot of variety. More so as there was in the '90s or the '80s. When '90s was just like NWA, Wu-Tang. It's a specific type of hip hop, like lyrical. But nowadays you have the lyrical, like Kendrick Lamar, you got J. Cole, you got all these other underground rappers under there too. They can rap, and then on top of that, you got the Lil Pumps, all them types that maybe you're not feeling like listening to some lyrical Negro spirituals. Like you want to listen to some stuff that's gonna turn up. Like you want to go in the club and listen to something that's gonna get you hyped. So
Okay, well, there's a lot to dissect there. So, I guess the first thing I'll look at is the concept of like an old head. So, is that just from your definition, that's someone who respects older tracks from rap and hip hop more than the newer stuff that's out?
yeah.
Okay, and so when it comes to, and then you also said that like hip hop back then was mainly dominated by lyricism, given acts like the Wu-Tang Clan, and now it's a bit more diverse.
Yeah.
So, what do you think spawned that diversity?
I want to say guys like Kanye West, 50 Cent, Outkast. They shifted it. They're some of the most influential artists of our time.
Right.
They've made it so like Kanye. He transitioned hip hop from where it was, where at the time it was lyrical, but it was more like, oh, I got the hardest, I got the biggest guns, I got the nicest bulletproof, I got the nicest vest, I got the nicest clothes, I got the nicest car.
Mm-hmm.
He made it so it's more like, let's talk about our feelings, Let's
Right.
talk about how we actually feel, be actually conscious, like, express your emotions more. And that from there transitioned to Kanye once again influencing. He made the album called 808s and Heartbreak, came out in 2008.
Right.
And this album was like nothing that hip hop's ever seen before. They're used in the name, 808s, and it's like a drum type,
Like a type of sample?
yeah, and it's used a lot nowadays in hip hop, as in like you'll hear like in a lot of new tracks in trap. Like boom, boom, all that, like the hard bass, it's like an 808.
That's not 808.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was mainly originated from 808s and Heartbreak. I mean, it had always been a thing, but it wasn't really used in hip hop as much. Someone like Kanye West came along, 808s and Heartbreak, implemented it into his music, and now it's being used almost everywhere. So like, that's part of, those some big reasons why we see hip hop as it is today. But
So you think that Kanye was pretty much like the spearhead in this sense, like he was the one driving it?
Yeah, he's a big driving force in the whole thing. Guys like 50 Cent, they helped as well. Outkast also, want to talk about their emotions more. But I would say Kanye West is the number one. And I do have bias in that. He is my favorite rapper of all time, but there you go. I mean,
how long have you been listening to Kanye? Is that as long as you've been listening to music? Or?
I'd say I've been listening to Kanye since 5th grade. I was like 2013. I've been listening to music since I was a kid. My parents, my mom especially, like a lot of R&B, old school, Boyz II Men, Erykah Badu, all that type of stuff.
Right.
So I listened to a lot of R&B growing up. I didn't really listen to rap. I wasn't exposed to rap until I think 4th grade. And even then, I only listened to Lil Wayne. I love Lil Wayne. I still do,
Right.
but I loved him a lot back then. And I think 5th grade, I found Kanye West, and it's just...
It was history.
It's
And that
history.
one was just
It's just, I fell in love with that stuff, man.
absolutely loved it. So when it comes to Kanye's, I guess, power, in the sense that he was, in your book at least, he was the one orchestrating all of this. I think it's interesting the paradigm that old heads, would the opposite side be called new heads then? Or are they just...
They're just called, I think, not really. There's not really a name for people that listen to newer stuff, but
It's kind of weird. Why isn't there a name for that?
I guess old head's more of a derogatory term. It's more of an insult than it is a good thing to be called. An old head to me is just someone who prefers older music, but in the culture that is today, an old head could be seen as a guy that's just stuck in the past, always telling the young folks, the typical old guy, waving his stick, oh man, but you young boys, stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's a geezer, pretty much.
Yeah,
who things
a boomer.
A boomer.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, I guess, comparing, I think I can't say this with authority, of course, because I'm not an old head per se, but I think one of the main driving arguments is that rap has been commercialized in a sense, where it's there's been an increase in a money motive, in the sense that people are purely entering the genre of rap to make money because it's profitable.
Yeah.
And they're not wrong. When you look at the numbers, for example, there are people who are making millions simply off of this one genre alone. I think that old heads kind of want a return to the sanctity of rap, if that makes sense. In the sense is I remember when rap was, because I guess in some ways, if you take the money motive out and you look at the older music as a genuine, just people were just rhythm and poetry. That's what rap stands for. Would you say that in itself was kind of an expression of feeling?
I mean, their argument makes sense. It really does, because nowadays you can see even when artists put out albums, they'll overload it with tracks that they've made years ago, or they'll put 20, 30 tracks on their album just so they can up the streaming numbers and get more money, And I can understand that someone would feel that it makes it feel less genuine. It's more just commercialized and just trying to get the money. It's understandable. A lot of these guys come from harsher upbringings. Some particular would be the Atlanta trap scene. A lot of these guys are from terrible, pretty bad neighborhoods growing up. They've seen some pretty bad things, and they saw rap as their only way out. Because there's another way out, but it's not exactly a good thing. It's not. It's like selling drugs.
Yeah,
you wouldn't want to do that.
It's looked down upon in society.
Exactly. So they've turned to rap. Of course, they're gonna want to see more money. They're gonna want to buy all the nicest bags, the nicest clothes. They want to have the big cars, the nice stuff, everything. But I feel like that motive has been around for a long time. I feel like guys like Wu-Tang Clan, if you study their upbringing, they were definitely in it for some money as well. They started out, selling drugs. A lot of rappers did start out selling drugs. Like Jay-Z, Pusha T, they did that as well. They realized, hey man, maybe selling drugs isn't exactly the best thing for us. Maybe it's not exactly what's gonna help us in the long run. A lot of us getting arrested, getting in jail, put in jail a lot. Maybe it's not the best thing for us.
And so they changed to something that's a bit more, literally something that's more commercial.
Exactly.
I don't think that's a word. But you see what I mean? Something that they can put on the market that's safe, that's legal. And I guess the target audience, do you think the target audience has shifted throughout the years?
It definitely has. Before, it was definitely towards more of the black population. It was the way they were telling their story. It's more something that black people can relate to.
Could empathize with.
Exactly. So nowadays, I mean, to commercialize, you gotta adapt. You gotta know to who you're selling to. Someone like Drake isn't gonna start talking about his it's hard to explain, but you know that the population of America is mostly white.
Mm-hmm.
You know that's mostly who's buying your music. It's nowadays that is mostly who's buying your music. You know, the white population. You're not gonna have. You can't just appeal to only black people who grew up who struggled. There's black people who didn't struggle. Like a lot of black people that grew up in a nice neighborhood, they're fine. They still listen to rap music because there's still stuff they can relate to. Stuff back then, you know, it's difficult to relate to that stuff. You know, not everyone grew up slinging dope and selling drugs. Like, it's just not something that everyone grew up with. So not everyone's gonna relate to it. But nowadays, you see guys like Drake talking about feelings about a girl. Feelings like just things that people can relate to more.
If we follow that path of logic, then it would seem that rap, rhythm, and poetry was a very like ethnic or like racially tied thing, in the sense that like it was something that was made by predominantly African Americans for African Americans. And so since when that evolves, when like now not only are African Americans listening to it, now like what exactly do you do? And then that is why we have like a bit more diverse in terms of color. We have like white rappers, we have Latin rappers, we have rappers of all ethnic identities. And so now I guess it would make sense that it's not like a one-to-one comparison. Like now today's like today's black rappers aren't just making music for black people. Today's white rappers aren't just making music for white people.
Exactly.
Right. And so I guess that kind of goes with the more, I guess, interpolation of races into America. That's definitely would go like against segregation in a sense, because like now it's not just like white people doing things for white people, black people doing things for black people. Now people are doing things for people in a sense. And I guess like maybe that shift is something that isn't internally like realized. And that might be why old heads have their misgivings. But I do also think that when you take something that was so incredibly like segregated and then like desegregated, there is like a fundamental understanding. Like everyone has to be on like that same page. Like, okay, we're doing this differently now. And I guess like not everyone was on that page. And so the question then becomes like, would it be possible for that page to turn?
To fully turn? When everyone's on board? I'm not sure it's going to be possible.
I don't think it would be possible either. I think that some people would be like, well, this is how it is. This is how it should be. And I think that's like the predominant, like, because when it comes down to it, people don't really like change.
Yeah.
In a sense, like, and that it can be applied to like any capacity, not just music. And so when it comes to like rap specifically, when there's change, people are going to dislike it. For example, I remember, this is fairly crass, but Lil Dicky, when I have listened to some of his music, and it would seem that it's fairly comedic in nature. It has a lot of puns in it, and like that is a very large like detraction from what you would, if you were looking at it like at a glance, what rap is. Like it's not puns for the sake of comedy. It's puns to like enhance your thinking or like shift your perspective on a topic by making a metaphor. And so I think that kind of, when you are able to take humor out of it, it's somewhat trivializes it in a sense, and that might also make people a bit perturbed when they look at it. It's like, well, what are you doing with our perfectly good art form? You're literally making a joke out of it. It's like, that's not cool.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people that'll call Lil Dicky corny, because of the stuff he does. I'm not a big fan of the music. I've heard a lot of his songs, but I mean, you gotta give him credit for what he's doing. It's not something that's like easy to do. It's definitely requires talent. So, right. In my opinion, if it requires talent, no need to hate on it. For me, that's in my opinion. But of course, not everyone agrees with that. Not everyone wants to like stuff just because it requires talent. They want to hear something that they like. So.
And so that was another thing that I wanted to point out in your original thesis, kind of. And it comes to like music that just makes you want to, I guess, get hype in a sense. What exactly do you look for Like, are you looking for a specific like pattern of music? Are you looking for just loud noises in a sense? Like, what is that hype? If you were to define it.
I wanna use an example of an artist. He passed away just recently. Pop Smoke. He was growing up in New York a lot. You know, they're playing him all over the clubs. You know, and it's just something about the beat. The beats are just heavy, hard hitting bass, like something that you can just nod your head to. The lyrics, they're not really like deep, introspective lyrics. Like they're more like, oh, look at my wrist, look at, like, you know, stuff, just bragging, stuff like that. That type of stuff. I mean, it's not the best thing in the world.
Do you think it's just like it's something that is like very topical and easy to relate to? It's something that they can latch on to like easily. You think that might be like a physiological thing in the sense that like people are just, when like there's heavy kind of drum beats, if it's not threatening, then it's appealing in a sense?
I guess so, because it seems to be appealing to most of the population.
And then like also we can, if you look at it historically, there's been like a lot of times in which like loud, aggressive, generally more vibrant playing of like not only just drums but other instruments like flutes and saxophones are meant to connotate an emotion of high-end emotion. Like it could be used to express enlarged a large amount of hype or happiness. It can be used to enlarge a sense of fear as well. It's interesting to see how like happiness and fear are like very intertwined. But to stay on the subject, I think that has found its way into rap just by the sense of history, not necessarily repeating itself, but taking inspiration
from like rock, you know, genres that have been around longer. But especially rock. Rock is like the main influence, I guess, for hip hop. But
really,
you won't hear it as much, but definitely in like, I guess, song structure, lyrically, the way they do their stuff is usually pretty similar to most rock songs. But like, as you can see, like over the years, over the decades, rock has, it used to be the main genre. Like everyone used to listen to rock, like Nirvana, bands like that. It has gone down, and in its place, hip hop, R&B has taken its place. Pop music, as you could say, has also taken its place. It's also very successful.
So there's been like an ebb and flow to it.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Yeah,
it's definitely. And so, I guess we kind of touched on this, but to focus more into it, the kind of perspective that you have when you're like listening to music, because for me at least, there's a very large gap between like rock and R&B. I've never like. And that's why when you said it took me by surprise, I never really thought about the similarities. But when you think about it, I would say that most, if not all, except for like the few outliers of rock and R&B and rap are recorded in 4/4 time.
Exactly. Right. That's something I was about to get to. Like 4/4 time is very commonly used, and it's in rap. There's only like, I'm not sure there's, for all the Billboard hits that songs have gone on like the Hot 100 songs, I think there's only been about 2 rap songs in history that were not written in 4/4.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy to me. Like there's only been 2 ever. And then one of them is, I think, Outkast, Hey Yeah, which is like one of my favorite songs of all time.
Do you know the time signature for that?
I think it's 2/4.
2/4.
Or something. It might be 4th, I'm not sure, but it's some weird pattern, but like, I forgot, I'm not sure about the other one, but I know there's 2 distinct ones.
Yeah. I do think that like time signature is like one of the easiest ways when it comes to the textbook form of music. And of course by textbook I mean like the people who wrote down like, okay, this is what a quarter note looks like, this is what this is how long the whole note is. Like in terms of music theory, I do think that time signature is, I guess, like the easiest way to break into it, but because everything is recorded in 4/4 times, it's kind of hard like when something isn't in 4/4 time to hear it.
That's true.
Right, because like because you start thinking in 4/4 time, and so like when you hear a music track that isn't in 4/4, you'll pick up the beat and then you'll be off and you're like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
I've never been able to like really get down and lock in like how exactly to get 4/4. I always have to have someone else like tell me what it is, someone who's more musically inclined. But because to me it's like, yeah, I just can't. And I would say that a lot of society would. I think it would be a very interesting project to do is if you were to get people just like a good sample of just regular civilian citizens who aren't the most musically adept or trained, and then like see if they can guess what time signature it is and see how many times they say 4/4 as opposed to literally anything else.
Yeah. I mean, even like the song I'm talking about, Hey Yeah, I didn't know that wasn't a 4/4.
Yeah, me neither. That's news to me.
Yeah, so someone had to come and tell me that. I listened, I was like, oh wow, sounds kind of. I mean, I guess it's because like someone told me. Like I never even realized it. Like by myself, someone had to come and tell me. So me, like I guess hearing it after someone told me, maybe that's because they told me more than I actually heard it. But
Yeah.
I started actually like I guess hearing it. In my head,
yeah, because like then like when you listen to the track now you know there's make like that switch.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well now I got to think about this differently.
Exactly.
I wonder, like, that makes me think about all the other like switches that musicians on an entire scale, like of just all genres, put into their it was like, for example, speaking about EDM, one of the most like ubiquitous genres in the EDM is just dubstep. Like, everyone knows dubstep. It was super popular back in 2011, 2012. That's actually when it launched into popularity. Yeah, Deadmau 5, Deadmau5, yeah, Skrillex, Kill the Noise, Osla, Zomboy, Spaghetti. I can't remember.
I'm not too well.
Yeah, I mean, like,
no house of
because like the thing with dubstep is I always remember like how the song goes. I'm about to get into this in a bit, but I always remember how the song goes as opposed to the artist. Like I can tell you, there's a difference between like a Spaghetti. That's what I was looking for. The difference between a Spaghetti track and Excision, or the difference between Excision and That's Sick, based off of like how they organize their sound. But there's also like. Lost my train of thought. Never mind. But what I was saying was dubstep was definitely like catalyzed and propelled into popularity. I would say in like 2011, 2012, specifically with Skrillex's First of the Year Equinox. It's the one that was like call 911 now, and there's like a big drop. Yeah, everyone's heard it, but like no one knows what the name is because like when it comes to dubstep, like you're not really looking for lyrics.
Yeah,
that's because there are none.
It's more like it's definitely more just for the the artist to show off or display their talent. Making the beat itself more than there's really any lyrics. There's
definitely like a sense of a demonstration of technological marvels. Like look at all the cool stuff I did with the computer. In fact, there was a pretty dramatic debate within the music community for a bit. I'm pretty sure it's settled now. I'm not sure though. That EDM, dubstep, trip hop, glitch hop, trap, and a lot of other EDM genres in general. EDM, of course, stands for electronic dance music because of the fact that it was made by a computer, that it didn't require actual talent as opposed to like an instrument. And I think that's this might be an old head argument actually.
It's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, because like if you think about it, like in the days of yore, we didn't have machines to make music for us. You had to like literally carve out holes into a hollow stick, and now you have a flute. I guess like that transition from something so like something that had to be manufactured to something else that had to be manufactured. I guess it's hard to explain. Something that was crafted that you have to use your body in like no, because there's more labor to play a saxophone than it is to synthesize something.
Of course.
I guess that's the best way to sum that up. I guess like that delta in labor is what has caused people to say, oh well, that's not real work. All you're doing is pressing buttons on a computer, and then also there's the fact of how like different EDM is to any other genre, because EDM, I believe, don't cite me on this, started out around the 1960s.
I wouldn't have a clue, honestly.
Yeah, I really wouldn't have. I know that house started house started in 1960, so it might have been a bit before that. But it started around like the 1960s, and this was with the rise of machines, because now you have like drum machines, which is actually used a lot in hip hop and rap. Yeah, Grandmaster Flash.
Exactly.
I believe is the originator of beatbox, right?
He's one of them.
Yeah, like most drum machines were like based off of what he was doing.
Exactly.
But like there was a rise in stuff like that, like drum machines and also synthesizers, and with that came like people started to push the boundaries when it came to what music they were making, because like, okay, well now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna make something with it. I'm going to apply my creativity. And I think like at a most basic level, that's kind of what you're looking for when it comes to music, not necessarily like how much labor you had to put into creating it, more so the creativity that goes into it.
Exactly. Like saying that EDM producers don't have talent, that's ridiculous to me. Like, because a lot of people in the music community will, I think they'll agree with me when I say this, that EDM producers are probably the most talented in the genre, honestly, for what they have to do.
Yeah.
Like for shows and all that stuff. Even just making the music itself. Like,
especially like being a DJ disc jockey.
Exactly. Like that's some insane. Like hip hop, you just play the instrumental on there, just start playing, and the guy can start rapping. And it's not that difficult. It's like something like EDM. You're gonna have to like actually like. I don't know how to like the terms or anything, because like I'm not too much of an EDM guy, but like
you have to make sure everything's equalized. You have to like control the volume level of all the different tracks that you have going on. Tracks, of course, each of those would usually correspond to a separate instrument, and then you have to figure out what you're going to amplify and when. And also, if you're DJing, like scratching that is like just thinking about it's because you're taking it's not a CD, but a
vinyl.
A vinyl record, and like moving it such that it is played incorrectly.
Yeah.
And then letting it play, and you're doing that like in rhythm.
Yeah.
And so like being able to like splice that into a song and then have it like go over smoothly, like would definitely take some practice.
And during a live show too, like in hip hop. And like in the early days, I guess like guys like Dr. Dre, RZA, produced for Wu-Tang. They did do that with the vinyls, but it wasn't live. It was like in their basement, they're recording the song, they're mastering it. They just, that's something that you can do multiple times to get it right exactly. But EDM, you have to do it exactly right the first time, because you're live.
Right. If you screw up, everyone's going to hear it. Yeah. And I think like another thing that gets people kind of tripped up in this sense is like they see EDM as kind of pointless is how like egregiously loud it is, because like I will agree it's very loud. And a lot of people it would seem like it's just noise. It's just noise, but that kind of brings into question what exactly is music, because like how far away can you go from music before it is literally just noise? And so like I would ask you that question. What do you think can't be music?
White noise.
Right. I would say that's a good baseline for everyone. Like white noise is something that's not music. And so if you come at it from that perspective, then dubstep is most definitely music. Exactly. And despite like the loud noises, it kind of takes that hype that you were talking about, the songs that get you hype, and it's just more hype.
Like I've seen a lot of music festivals. They definitely
they get into it.
Yeah.
They get into it. They do that with rock and R&B as well. They just get into it differently.
Exactly.
And that is simply just a difference in culture, a difference in genre. I think that when it comes to comparing stuff like EDM to rap or like rap to country, like you have to come into basics that like it's different strokes for literally different folks. I mean, I personally don't like country. I really don't. I don't like country. I think that I wouldn't say that country isn't music. I just don't. I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't want to sound like a hater, but like, I don't think it really takes that much to work. Like, of course, I mean, it's an instrument. At the end of the day, you gotta know how to play it. But at the end of the day, for me, something like hip hop takes a lot more creativity than something like a country. Like the way the song structures work in country. Not as ambitious as like some of the greatest works in hip hop. Like, I'll get an example like Kendrick Lamar's Pimple Butterfly. Like, some of the stuff on there is just so crazy. Like, you wouldn't even dream that's even possible on a hip hop record, but he's able to do it. But somewhat, I've never heard anything like crazy out of this world come from country. Like I've asked country fans, like, name me classic country albums, and it's like there's not really that many. And it's not like it's a brand new genre or something. Like it'd be difficult. Like it's a genre that's been around longer than hip hop.
Yeah.
But hip hop, name me classic hip hop albums. You got 36 Chambers by Wu-Tang, Illmatic by Nas, Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye. There's a long list. But I don't want to knock the genre or like seem like a hater, but it's just doesn't seem like it's.
And then like again, we also have to understand that like seeing as that rap and like R&B again are had racial origins at least. Given that, I think that there was kind of that helped it to become a bit more popular because like if it was made by a group of people to be related to by a group of people, then of course like there's going to be a lot of back and forth there. There's going to be a lot of people listening and a lot of people creating. If country music, I'm not entirely sure if it was that racially I can't say that with authority at all. But given how that back and forth isn't necessarily there because like there's people creating it, but like how many people are listening to it per se, I think that country music might, from a basic perspective, is just again like people expressing. And I do think that country music, I will say this, is a bit better at getting pure emotion now. I think that like if you listen to a country song, you can like top down in one go describe exactly how that person was feeling when they made it. A rap song, you're gonna have to listen to it a couple of times. An EDM song, you're gonna have to listen to it even more because there's no lyrics. I think that country music is like maybe like the apex of like emotionally like not venting, but like a bit emotionally speaking to an audience.
I want to argue that I think it'd be R&B instead, because I'd say genres that are more lyrically dense, like rap, some cases of rock. You can see the emotion, but it's a bit more difficult because it's so many words. So I want to say like metaphors and stuff, and you have to break down. There's a lot of YouTube channels out there that like break down individual rap songs.
Yeah, it's like that's their job.
Exactly.
That. But like you can see that there's almost no YouTube channels dissecting country music.
Exactly. It's something that you can
get it. Yeah. It's like, and that's my point. It's like because that's why it's so emotionally like it's so adequate for expressing emotions because you can get it in one shot. And like I understand that like with rap and R&B being so lyrically dense, like it would seem that there's more there per se, I guess. And that might be your argument in the sense that like the first listen is just the tip of the iceberg, where with country music you can see the entire glacier. But at that point, I think it might be like an apples to oranges argument. Honestly, definitely. And like that might recursively define like this entire conversation. We've just been comparing apples to oranges, but I do think that these comparisons are important because it can help us get a better understanding of the stuff that we like to listen to. I think that it's extremely important that we like talk about not just specifically like, well, he said the with a little bit of like twang to it, so I might mean this, but I think it's important to talk about just like the music that we like so that we can understand why we like it. Because I think that, going back to rap, I think a lot of people just listen to rap because that's what people listen to.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of people that just like, only artist they know is Drake. Drake's always topping the Billboard. They're only going to listen to Drake because everyone else listens to Drake. Like,
right, exactly.
Don't really wants to form their own opinion and actually find the artist that they actually enjoy, not something that the friend enjoys, but like a group of people enjoy.
Yeah, and then of course there's also the point that like the music that you're into may or may not be a mirror into what kind of person you are. And like that's like a whole other can of worms because it's like you can't really ever assume that a certain person is going to act a certain way because they listen to a certain type of music. Like if someone listens to hype music all the time, they can listen to it for a couple of weeks. They might listen to it because they're just generally a hype person, or they might listen to it because they're not a hype person and they need to get hype.
Exactly.
There's so many like intricacies with why people listen to what they listen to that me personally, I would think that someone's music taste is not a good indicator of what kind of person they are.
Yeah, I mean, it does depend, because, yeah, as you said, in some cases, it does turn out to be true.
And that would well, not to cut you off, but you had to cut you off. And that would be like even more exacerbated as time goes on and as people's music tastes become more and more diverse, as the genres start to borrow more and more from each other. I like to call it Old Town Road by Lil Nas X. It's literally just a very country beat, and he just started rapping over it, and it of course that might be attributed to a good sense of marketing and entrepreneurship, but I digress. But back to what you were saying.
I mean, I honestly can't remember what I was gonna say.
Sorry.
It's all right. I guess overall, rap music, it depends, because there's albums. There's always gonna be specific topics that do like apply to you. Well, when you go deep into a genre, you'll find albums that most of the time you'll find albums that do, in a way, they affect you. Like they'll represent you in a way. Like there's some albums in hip hop that I could probably give you a list of albums in hip hop that
if you only listen to them, you'd have a good sense of who you are.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. Like, if you listen to those albums, you probably know a lot better who I actually am. So like something like that. It just depends on how deep you go in the genre, honestly, to me.
Okay.
Because like I think in rock you could probably find some albums that do define you in a way.
Do you think you'd be able to find some albums that define you if you went into country music?
I'm not sure about that, but I mean, possibly. Anything's possible, but
yeah,
I'm not 100% sure.
You wouldn't put your money on it?
I wouldn't. Yeah.
I think one thing that might put a wrench into that, though, is how two different people could interpret the same song.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah. I think that this goes back to like the hype person listening to hype music's non-hype person listening to hype music. Like, I do think that depending on your emotional state when you come across the track, that definitely influences how you listen to it. And I think that will kind of, that first initial listen, if you're not coming at a place of neutrality. For example, like if you listening to a Kanye song, since you're like such a large fan of Kanye, you're automatically going to think like, yeah, this is going to slap, this is going to hit.
I mean, it depends. The way I go into music, I usually just go to clean slate. Like,
I think that's the way to go.
Yeah. So like Kanye's recent album, Jesus King, I went to the clean slate and it wasn't that good to me. Wasn't very good. It's probably the worst album he's ever made. But,
oh my.
Yeah, but I mean, it is Kanye. I'm still gonna love Kanye, but.
Right.
At the same time, I have to criticize when he puts out some fine stuff, you know.
Definitely.
And that was definitely not something that I like or enjoyed. But there are people that enjoyed it, you know, and I can't knock them for enjoying it.
Right. And like other people would say that Kanye's worst album has already happened.
Exactly. A lot of people say it's the one that dropped 2018 called Yay. But I think it's a great album. I think every album he's put out is a great album except for that one. That Jesus King. But it just depends on how you see it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like that benchmark of just how we evaluate like what is good in a sense, because it's like if you come across someone who has like a specific discography that they enjoy and like, and you think it's all trash, you're gonna think they're a trash person. Like you'd be like, oh wow, this person doesn't have very good music taste. But then like you have to realize that there's implicit bias there. Is like you can't like see behind those glasses that you have on. In a sense.
I can understand that. But then I'll say like there are specific things I look for in a rap song, or I look for in an R&B song. These are like my two favorite genres. But like even a pop song or a rock song, there are specific things I'm gonna look for that make me believe that this is a good track or this is a good album. Like someone said this, like this is a perfect way to describe it. Like music is subjective, but there are objective parts to it.
Okay.
And this is how like stuff like flow, I guess, or rhyme scheme, stuff like that. That is objective. Like you can't just think that I guess that this has more rhymes than that. It's like a numerical number. Like this has a number of rhymes, that has a number of rhymes. This has more than that. But you can. It's subjective in a way that you can choose which facets you choose to like focus on, which ones that you choose to place as more important than others. Like I might choose to focus more on production than I do on actual lyricism, or I might choose to focus more on how the rapper told the story than how he produced the track or his songwriting ability. So it just honestly depends on what you see as more important in the track.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think like taking all of these complexities into account, it is so incredibly hard to recommend music to anybody like ever. There's a lot of times in which with my parents, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, this track is awesome," and it's an EDM. This was back when I was a bit younger, so like my music tastes were a bit more like, I guess they're a tad more grounded, and like because I like to experiment with my music. I always like to go out for new things. But like when I was younger, I really liked to do it. Like I would be listening to like new albums every day and then like never come back to it. Like I remember one time I was in the middle of a social studies class. I was listening to like an Infected Mushrooms album. Like, of course, like reading your face, like what is that? I can't tell you because I forgot. But like, of course, I would take that and then recommend it to my parents. Like, oh yeah, listen to this slaps. Maybe, and my parents, of course, like given their collective like 80 years of experience listening to music, is like, okay.
You know, it's not really. I don't want to call them like boomers or anything. But that's just the context. Like that's.
And I wouldn't call them boomers either. It's literally just like, well, like this child is trying to tell me this is good, and like this literally doesn't make sense.
Definitely understand that.
I would say that there is a bit of kind of, it's endearing to be recommended a piece of music, because that means that someone has looked at you and seen like the way you act and like your mannerisms, and said that this music would be a good compliment to that. And so I do think it's flattering someone like recommends me a piece of music, and I go out of my way to try and listen to it. But like there's that miasma of like approach, emotional placement, what you're looking for in music that has to be considered. And so when you're able to recommend a track that like that person like once in a blue moon actually listens to and they enjoy it, and like you start to develop a music sense with them together, I think that is something that like is genuinely just amazing.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's something that a lot of people can agree on. But I'm trying to think of anything else. Overall, like music does have. I'll talk about the effect of music on people. Like how music has helped people. A lot of people will say, like in the rap community, that Kid Cudi, for example, has helped them through a lot of tough times. So for me, music's just a way for me to, you know, escape almost. You know, maybe you're having issues in life, you just put that song on that you love, and you can just think about that for the next 3 minutes. Go to the next one you love, think about that for the next 3 minutes, and maybe just repeat that song, just keep going. And that's why I think, in my opinion, I don't know anyone else, you know, I'm not gonna state that it's a objective fact, but right. In my opinion, music's probably the greatest thing that's ever been made. So
and I think that is also a good place to end it. As always, this has been the Quixotic Topic. Thank you for joining me today.
You
don't have to say your name. But this is DP from the QT signing out.